The Flying Head. The four friends sitting at the table in the middle of the coffee shop suddenly broke into loud, boisterous laughter. Yazid had somehow successfully managed to snort water through a straw up his nose, intending to spit it out through his mouth, a trick he had learned online. It did not seem to be working, and the water trickled down his throat, leaving him spluttering for a good few minutes. Ayman started to thump his back while the rest fell back on their seats, laughing maniacally at his predicament. The drink stall owner looked at them, shaking his head, and laughed silently to himself, a sight he often witnessed when a group of young men decided upon themselves that eating quietly was just not on the agenda. It was almost midnight, and the 24-hour coffee shop was slowly winding down. The usual supper crowd had trickled to a small, quieter clientele, and the sudden noise coming from the group startled a few patrons sitting nearby. Rodney looked at his watch and gestured for the group to huddle closer around the table.
So how about it? We go one round up the truth, I was telling you all about, remember?
Eyes gleaming with excitement, he told them of a story he had heard from his uncle about the flying head at that particular road near to where they were located now. All three were game for it because they did not really believe Rodney's uncle in the first place, and they did not want to go home at that moment either. They got up from the table, waved and shouted their loud goodbyes to the drink stall owner, and noisily left the coffee shop. Ayman fished out his car keys, unlocked the doors, and started the engine. Yazid and Rodney managed to share a few puffs of smoke from Rodney's cigarette before getting in the car. Gleaming was already in the back seat, texting his mother that he would be late so as not to worry her. Rodney climbed in and settled himself comfortably beside Ayman, acting as co-pilot since he knew which route to take. They continued their jokes and banter throughout the ride with the sound of the radio as their background music.
Okay, turn here. It will lead to the road I was telling you about,
Rodney suddenly said. Ayman signaled right and turned in the direction indicated by Rodney. The group grew quiet as they traveled up the road lined with dense trees on either side. Gleaming had dozed off, and Yazid was intensely fighting a demon on a gaming application on his mobile phone. They came to a huge rusty gate at the end of the road. Ayman stopped the car and hesitated. Are you sure this is the place? The road ends here, you know. The only way out is going back from the way we came in. Rodney nodded and went out of the car to stretch his legs. He lit a cigarette and looked around. Ayman pulled on the handbrake but did not turn off the engine. He too stepped out of the car to join Rodney. Both of them looked towards the empty bungalow beyond the rusty gate. The lone streetlight cast a gloomy shadow over the gate, and the overgrown bushes and big trees surrounding the estate gave it an air of dread. A cold wind blew, and the leaves rustled in the wind. The sound of the forest engulfed the two men who stood in front of the car as they puffed away on their cigarettes. Ayman flicked his stub away nervously. He felt uneasy about the whole trip, but tried to play it cool in front of Rodney. In the car, Yazid, who had lost his battle in his game, gave up and kept his phone in his pocket. He opened the door, intending to join Rodney and Ayman outside, when he saw, on the roof of the abandoned house, a ball of light bouncing up and down along the outline of the roof. He stared at it fascinatedly as the ball grew slightly bigger. It took him a good few seconds before realizing that the ball became bigger and bigger because it was traveling towards them. At that moment, Rodney and Ayman quickly hurried inside the car and slammed their doors.
Yazid, get inside now, hurry!
Rodney shouted while Ayman fumbled with the handbrake. Huiming, awakened by the sudden commotion, looked around as if in a daze. Pulling his suddenly heavy left foot into the car, Yazid fumbled with the door before he managed to get it closed. Ayman hit the locks on all four doors, but he could not turn the car around fast enough, for at that very moment, the four of them watched, transfixed, as the ball of light bobbed over the rusty gate and glided towards them. As it came nearer, they saw that it was in the shape of a woman's head with long hair, intestines trailing underneath, and blood-red flaming eyes staring intensely at them. It opened its mouth and snarled evilly at them as it bobbed up to the hood of the car. Ayman closed his eyes and muttered a few prayers to calm himself. He knew that he had a responsibility to move the car and transport his friends out from the frightening situation right away. Taking a deep breath, he made a wide turn around the spot, narrowly missing a drain, and hit the accelerator as soon as he saw the straight road that led back to the main highway. The car sped along the road at top speed, but Ayman felt that they were not moving fast enough. In the back seat, Huiming watched as the head flew steadily behind them. Yazid was almost hugging Rodney's seat as he moved forward, trying to erase the frightening image from his mind. He tried to recite some lines from a prayer, but he could not concentrate as he listened to the chaos caused by Rodney and Huiming shouting urgently at Ayman to hurry. Ayman had a few choice words for Rodney and Huiming, but he forced himself to focus on the road instead. The din that they were causing by shouting instructions at him was not exactly helping the situation. Hands gripping the wheel tightly, he floored the accelerator pedal and ignored their voices. The road seemed to go on forever, and for a fleeting moment, he wondered if they were going to get out of this alive. After what seemed like an eternity, the sign leading to the highway came into the sight, and he finally breathed a huge sigh of relief. He entered the highway and eased the car to a steady speed. "Is he still there?" Ayman asked.
No. You turned abruptly back into the trees when we were about to enter the highway."
He glanced over at Huiming, who could only nod weakly, too scared to say a word. Yazid was huddled over, finally remembering his forgotten lines, and whispered his prayers fervently, trying to think of nice places and remove the frightening image from his mind. Ayman loosened his grip from the wheel. He told the group that it was best to stop at an all-night eatery to recuperate and regain their spirits before he could send each of them home. No one argued with his suggestion. As they sped along the highway, The occupants of the car fell silent as they sat back, each of them lost in their own thoughts. So what do you think? Whose head was that? Were the boys imagining things?